Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the Resume Critique virtual program of the Allen County Public Library. My name is Joanne, and I'm from the WorkOne office, and I will be the host for today's program. Our co-host is Lisa, a librarian at the Allen County Public Library.
Since today's program is being recorded, in order to improve the quality of everyone's listening experience, your microphones have been muted. If you have a question or comment, please use the chat function at the bottom of the screen. We will facilitate the conversation as we go.
Resume critique, discovering what employers are looking for in a resume. Matter of fact, I always like to say when I teach this workshop, what are employers looking for? This is what we're going to take a look at today. And as we're critiquing or studying or reviewing what employers want, this is how we can match up to better jobs. Also, I wanted to let you know that you should have a handout that you can download, and I will be referring through this throughout our program. So keep this nearby if you wish. We are presented in partnership between the Allen County Public Library and WorkOne Northeast. WorkOne programs are equal opportunity programs, and we also have auxiliary aids, which are available upon request to individuals with disabilities. So, what is our agenda for today? Do you know? What is the format? What is the appearance, the length or the construction, and the professionalism that goes with resume critiquing? Do you know what a resume is? What 3 questions should the resume answer? How long do employers are looking at your resume, and what keyword software is and how it works? First of all, what is a resume? This is a marketing tool designed to showcase your skills and accomplishments. And that's all it is basically to kind of get you into the interview. You don't want to do your whole life history, but what has made you stand out in previous jobs? What kind of skills can you offer the employers? It also is a summary of your experience and skills relevant to the job you're applying for. Let's say you have a nursing background and you want to leave the nursing environment. You want to go to this, like to an office environment. Again, you want to make sure that your skills are relevant to the job you are applying for. Also, it highlights your accomplishments to show a potential employer that you are qualified for the job. Again, we don't need your whole life story. And again, the purpose is to get you the interview. Your resume should answer the following questions. What do you want to do? What qualifies you for this position? And what skills that you have has transferred to this work environment? Again, what do you want? What qualifies you? And what skills can transfer throughout your work environment? Did you know that employers only spend between 5 to 15 seconds looking for a resume? They don't have all day to look at it. Many times employers may have hundreds of resumes, and they can't spend hours and hours just looking at the resume. So again, we're going to be looking at today what information, what's important, what's not as important to put at the top versus the bottom. Also, some employers use computer software to scan resume for keywords. It is known as ATS, which is Applicant Tracking System. For example, when you go into the store and you know how everything is scanned now, that's what many employers are using for software. Instead of looking at your resume, that the software does it for them. Here's an example of a keyword software report. As you can see, the word analysis shows up in yellow. along with the word design. The word projects has 12 matches. It's kind of like in the orange red. The word technology or integration appears in green. The word retail is in blue. What this means is that when you are putting together your resume, you want to make sure that your resume is tailored to, or is like is mirroring the job description. That means certain keywords such as analysis, you want to make sure that word is appearing on your resume. By having those keywords applying on your resume, you could be invited into an interview. If those words are, your keywords are not matching to the job description, you could be missing out. For example, let's say you put, the employer uses the word forklift operator, but in your resume, you use the word fork truck. Fork truck and forklift, even though they may mean the same thing, that one word difference between forklift and fork truck could be preventing you from receiving an interview. We're going to be looking at some keywords and action words. Have you included relevant keywords and action words in your resume? If you're not, you could be missing out on the chance of an interview. Some keywords and phrases, such as looking at job descriptions. Again, make sure you look at the job description very carefully. If you're not sure what keywords are for the job descriptions, the WorkOne offices can help you. You can give us a call. You can visit. We could set up an appointment. We can set up a time that you can speak to a career advisor. We can go over your resume. We also can invite you to have to build a rapport with the career advisor as well too. So make sure that you take advantage of that. Another website is onetonline.org. Another one is Occupational Outlook Handbook, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and also Hoosier by the Numbers. It's also known by Hoosier Data. This is where you can find keywords. You can also look what jobs are going to be popular in the next 10 years, what careers there are still going to be around. The format. Are you using the proper resume format? Would you benefit from having more than one format? Many times, as I share with people, if your resume is getting you an interview, that's great. If your resume is not getting you an interview, perhaps you may want to adjust it or, keep your mind open to other formats. We're going to review the next three for you. There are three types of resume formats. There's chronological, functional, and combination or chronofunctional. Now, if you look on your handout here and on page 3 of page 9, it gives you an example of the chronological resume format. We're going to be looking at each one of these a little bit more in depth. The chronological resume is very popular. Also, too, if you use Indiana Career Connect in your job search, which is the state's job matching system, the default format is chronological. This can present your education and work experience with skills and achievements described in reverse chronological order. Many employers are comfortable with this. It's very widely used, and it's easier to create than other formats. Here's an example of the chronological format. As you can see, you have your employment history. You have the name of the employer, which is listed below your job title. Over to the right, you have the dates, the city and the state, along with some of the bullets that are used. So this would be a good example. If you're all new to this resume, you might want to keep this one in mind as you're using it. The next one is the functional resume, and this is on page 4 of your handout. This one will focus more on your skills and your accomplishments. It can omit the employment history, but it focuses more on your education history. Now, there's some pros and cons with this. This is focusing more on your highlights, your skills compared to the work history. It's also useful for entry-level or re-entry job seekers. One of the things that I want to share with you is that WorkOne works with many, many different kinds of people, very diverse backgrounds. We've had customers who've been incarcerated, and sometimes they find this type of resume a good place to put down their skills and their education history. However, some employers may think if you have a functional resume, you have your employment history is omitted. The employer might think you're trying to hide something. And again, not saying it's right or wrong, but you have to kind of decide what's best for you. And also, when you are applying for a job online or in paper, many times it will ask for work history. So sometimes you want to make sure that your work history on the application can match up to your resume as well. Here's an example of the functional resume. And again, we don't have the name of the employer. We don't have the location or anything. It's strictly on performance. As you can see here, we've got administrative support, supervision, and customer service. Here's my favorite. It's the combination or chronofunctional. And with the combinational, or I'm going to call it combo for short, this is the one that I like to use. It can combine the strength of functional and chronological, and the employment history is included. And many times with your employment history, you want to start with the most current and go back. It shows more flexibility in organizing your resume, and it can focus on your skills rather than on your employment history. If you look on page 5 of 9 of your handout here, it gives you more of the full page example of this one. And besides, many of our Northeast Indiana employers like this kind of format. Again, you can see it right here. What I like about it is that you're not duplicating any job duties. It makes it look clean. It looks fresh. At the bottom, it shows your job title, name of company, the date, and the location. So again, which one is going to be the best for you and which one do you prefer? Appearance. Does your resume look visually pleasing, and does it have a well-polished presentation? Have you ever seen a resume that has a lot of mistakes on it, that's crumbled? How far do you think that will go with the employer? Not too far. Here are some examples that are more pros and cons. As you can see here, on the left is the appearance of the fonts. The ones that we recommend, you could use Garamond, Arial, Calibri, or Times New Roman. I know for myself, I like the Garamond the best, the Times New Roman. The other side, you've got Blackadder, Edwiner, Freestyle, and Old English. Those are not going to appear as popular because sometimes people may have a harder time reading these. Also, too, this font for the presentation is size 40. And again, it's for demonstration purposes to help you to see it a little bit better. The font size should be 10 to 12 point. Again, depending on the font style. I know for myself, I usually stick right around the 12 point. Again, depends how long your resume is. Usually we say keep it to 1 page. We want to keep colors to a minimum. Make sure that the formatting is consistent and that it's visually balanced. And we will be looking at these a little bit more into depth. We have what's called the cross test here. And this is what we use a lot of times in our workshops. You see 4 quadrants there. Overall, it looks pretty well balanced. As you can see, there is a top margin, about 1 inch. Side margins are probably close to 1 inch, and the bottom margin is 1 inch. What you'd like to see is to have some white area. It's not that you want it completely white, but to have it so that your thumbs will be able to hold the paper. And with that, it gives it a polish. It doesn't look like it's crowded or scrunched in or too busy of a look. The next is the appearance, the 1/3 rule. And this one is pretty important to have. For example, let's say this was a full sheet here. What it is, you want to have it in thirds, just like when you receive a letter or a bill in the mail. What's going to be in the top half? Most of the time, the most important information is going to be in the top, because most employers are going to be looking at your resume. They're going to start from the top, working down to the bottom. And again, when they only have 5 to 15 seconds, they're not going to be reading everything. So you want to make sure maybe a lot of your skills, your accomplishments are in the top 1/3 or the top 1/2. That way it'll be pleasing for the employer, and it will also help the employer with time crunch as well too. The appearance of the margins. As you can see here, try to use normal margins. For example, you may say, well, what is normal? I usually encourage people maybe from 1/2 to 1 inch, the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. It's important that you use the normal margins. It makes it a little bit easier. And again, as I said earlier, when the employer is going to hold your resume, they're going to be using their thumbs. So if you have material over too far to the right and they have their hand there, it kind of makes it inconvenience for them. So again, make sure that you keep it more, keep it professional. You might also want to use more bullets. This example here, the information should come in a little bit further and maybe go down a little bit more and up a little bit more. A lot of times we have customers say, you know, I have a lot of problems trying to get my resume on 1 page. It's 2 pages. What can I do? You could come to the WorkOne office. We can help you work with that. Sometimes we can adjust the margins. We can adjust the font size. So we can always do a little tweaking here and there to help you. Here's an example that you want to avoid. It's over formatting. For example, do you really need a picture? You don't need a picture unless you're a model or something like that. As you can see here, this has got, I see red ink, there's yellow, there's green, there's different fonts. It looks too busy, it looks too cumbersome. This is something you don't want to use and you want to avoid. Next, we're going to be looking at the length. Is your resume complete but not too long or too short? We've had customers coming into the office, they've had 4 to 7 pages of their resume. That's a little bit too long. We usually encourage people 1 to 2 pages, but if you can try to get it on 1 page, that would be better yet. You want to make sure that the length should address the employer needs concisely. In other words, make sure all the information is relevant. Should not include every job you have or that you've ever worked, usually going back 10 years, sometimes it can be 15 years. For example, I'm not going to go back to the days when I worked in a nursing home. I don't want to return to that, so I don't need to include that information on my resume. Again, make sure that the margins and spacing can be adjusted to manage the length, which we've spoken about, 1/2 to 1 inch. And again, make sure it's usually, ideally is 1 page, no longer than 2. Eliminate the clutter. This reminds me of my room at home. I've got to work on the cluttering. You want to make sure that my room at home doesn't look like the resume. You want to make sure that you use a large enough font for your name. For example, usually, let's say the font on your resume is a size 12. What you could do to make your name stand out a little bit is make it bold, and you can increase it 1 or 2 sizes. I know many times if I use a 12 size font, I might make my name maybe a 14 or so. Next is the objective or summary. Only use one. You don't need to use both. Make sure that the objective, if you use that or if you use a summary, just only use one. I know personally for myself, I would rather use the summary than the objective. The next one, irrelevant information. For example, let's say in the past you have welding experience, but you want to transition to office. Again, you want to make sure that you don't include the welding experience. You want to focus more on the office. In other words, remove items not related to the type of the position you are applying for. Remove unneeded abbreviations, references available upon request. This happened a long time ago. We don't need this anymore. Now, in today's world, references are going to be on a separate page. Construction. Does your resume contain relevant components to sell you for the job? We're going to look at these a little bit more into detail. You have your contact information, objective or summary, experience, education, and other relevant information. Now, here's an example that you may want to consider. You have the contact information. You have the one at the top. There's nothing wrong with that. That's 5 lines. There's one on the bottom. It's 2 lines. For example, let's say you don't have enough experience. The 5-line contact information will fill up the page a little bit more. If you use the one that's below there, the 2 lines, that can give you more room throughout the body of your resume to list some of your accomplishments, your education or your work history. Also, too, you can also omit the address. You could just include your name, email address, phone number, or the city, state, and zip. I know recently I've been reading some information, and I've also seen too that some resumes, if you just have your name, a working email address, a working phone number, those 3 can also be sufficient. And also too, do you have a LinkedIn account? You could also put your LinkedIn account page on there as well too. So employers, what you don't have to fit in your resume, the employers can go to your LinkedIn page to see more information. Again, it's not required, but something to kind of think about. Email. I like beer at email.com. I would avoid this one, Harley Dude at email and Crazy Cats at email. Those are more for personal. Keep the email professional. Those are ones that you can share maybe with close family or friends. But the good examples to use would be, for example, you could use your first and last name. You could use maybe the first initial, such as Jane Doe at email, or J Doe at email, or jane.doe@email.com. It is best to avoid using the date of birth, year of birth, your children's years of birth, what year maybe if you got married, graduation. If you give that away, let's say you graduated in school in 1980. Right there, that can date you. So be very careful of the years, and also make sure that you use professional language and it's not negative. The objective, again, this is optional. You want to make sure that you reflect the employer's perspective. What does the employer expect? So make sure you keep the focus. Be concise, 1 to 2 sentences. Identify the skills job seekers can contribute to the employer, such as the type of the position, which is optional, in the industrial, optional. This type is good for new grads or changing careers. Also avoid, I need a job. Most people who interview for jobs need jobs or a change, but avoid, I need a job. It comes across as being very desperate. Even though you are, keep it to yourself, but stay optimistic and as positive as you can. Here's an example. And whenever I teach this workshop, I tell people, avoid the candidate focus, a position that would allow me to utilize my skills and knowledge in different areas. As an employer, if I would see that, it doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't tell me what your position is, what your skills are, or your knowledge. It doesn't tell me anything. The one below works much better. It's more focused. For example, seeking a position as a production worker, offering a strong work ethic and safety orientation to a company who is interested in utilizing these skills to increase production and reduce safety occurrences to strengthen the team environment. It tells me 3 things. Number 1, I'm seeking a position as a production worker. What can my skills do? My skills, the strong work ethic and safety orientation to a company. What can those skills do for the company? It can increase productivity and reduce safety occurrences to strengthen the team involvement. 3 things. The position, name at least a couple of skills. What can your skills do to the employer, and how will your skills benefit? That one right there is a perfect example. Summary. Does it contain an action word? Do you use the same words repetitively? Have you listed skills that align with your desired position? And did you include language that is meaningful to the employer? We're going to take a few more details of this one. Here's a great example. Certified public accountant with 7 years experience specializing in cost accounting. But right there, that tells me the person probably has a bachelor's degree in accounting. So the person probably has a degree. Also, the person has studied for the CPA, Certified Public Accountant exam. So the person has been disciplined, has studied, put the time in, and plus has passed it. And this person has 7 years experience. It's not tax accounting or personal accounting, but it's in a cost accounting. This person is also skilled in analyzing data, performing audits, and examining internal control procedures, along with proven knowledge of financial accounting systems. So if you choose to use a summary example, you can use this one. Next is the experience. Usually no more than 10 years experience. Make sure that it's relevant to the job description or the industry. You can include volunteer experience, use correct verb tense, and use bullets versus the paragraph form. Couple things that we're going to look at here. Most of the time you can say about 10 years experience, probably no more than 10 to 15 years. For example, make sure that it's relevant to the job description. For example, when you're using, say, that a tense in your resume, for example, when listing duties for a current position, you could use, like, say, manage a team of 15 accountants. And if it was in the past, you would say managed. Also, to be careful when you're putting years in, if you use too much you stretch your dates too much, it could come across as a form of there could be some gaps. So be aware of that. Here are some experience examples. Again, either one of these can be used. And if you look at them, they're the same information, but they're just kind of transposed around a little bit. You've got the chronological, you've got the job title and the dates. Next, you have the company name and the location. You have the skills category, such as skills, duties, and accomplishments. The combo, kind of like the opposite, you're putting the skills category, skills, duties, outcomes first, and below that, you'll have the job title, date, and company name. Again, which one do you like the best? Which one do you think that will help you get that interview? Education. Did you include relevant college experience? Did you include your highest level of education? Do you have any certificates that are relevant? Here's something that I'm going to encourage you to do. If the job description says it requires you to have a high school diploma or a high school equivalency, make sure that you list it on your resume, even if you have post-secondary education. One of the reasons why for this is include the high school along with college. If the employer is using the scanning process and the job description says high school diploma, your resume does not have high school diploma on it, but it has your college, the scanner could fly right past your resume and you may not be called in for an interview. So make sure that you put your high school on there or your highest level of education. Again, remember that the employer can use keywords. Also, do you have any certifications that are relevant? For example, could be CPR training. Do you have Six Sigma? Do you have welding certification? If that is relevant to the job you're looking for or applying for, make sure you list that. Here are some examples of education. Bachelor's of Science, Business. It has the name of the name of the school, the location. Six Sigma Belt. Again, Purdue, Fort Wayne. High school diploma. It has the name of the high school and the city. One thing that you may want to do, what would you say, for example, is, well, I'm in school right now and I'm planning to graduate in May of 2022. You could put on your resume expectant date of completion, May 2022. You could also put, if you have a GPA of 3.0 or higher, you can include that. And also too, you may want to list, if let's say you're studying business, you might want to put a couple of classes down, maybe marketing, business management. Just put a couple of down just to let the employer know. Those again are some options for you to consider. Your accomplishments. Does your resume include some accomplishments? In other words, What makes you stand out compared to other people that are applying for the job? Make sure that you showcase your actions to reflect your strengths. For example, have you ever found a way to save the company money? Let's say you worked in customer service. The average wait time was 15 minutes. Well, you found a way to go from 15 minutes to 8 minutes. Make sure that you include results such as qualify and quantify, and include an action word. Here are some examples below that will make your resume a lot stronger. You implemented policy and procedure for auditing reports. You increase accuracy rates from 65 to 90%. So right there, what did you do? You implemented a policy and procedure. What was it for? Auditing. And it increased accuracy rates up 25%. Another one is that you exceeded monthly sales quotas consistently by an average of 15% for 3 years by initiating a system of follow-up contacts with satisfied customers. You didn't meet monthly sales, you exceeded. That is a strong word to use in your resume if you have that. How long was it for? 3 years, and you increased it by 15%. And you also kept satisfied customers. Here's some other relevant information that you want to keep in mind. Honors or awards, professional groups and memberships, volunteering, military. For example, let's say you are in human resources and there's a group called SHRM. It's Society of Human Resources group. And if you belong to a professional organization, put that on there. It gives you a little more credibility to that. If you volunteer, put that down. If you've been in the military, take pride in that. So again, make sure that you put down information that'll help you be a strong asset to the company. Does your resume have what it takes to be selected by employers? Good question. How many times have I known different people saying, oh, my resume looks great. Why didn't the employer not call me for an interview? Well, let's take a look at what we can do to improve that. The employer's perspective. Does your resume make a good impression in 5 to 15 seconds? We've looked at the margins. We've looked at how big the font should be. Is it relevant to the job? Oh, I'm going to apply for an office job, but I've been working in welding for 20 years. Do you think the employer wants to know about my welding experience? How will my welding experience help with work in the office? Make sure it connects. Could you be considered overqualified? That can happen too. Does it give enough reasons to invite you for an interview? Professionalism. Is your resume free of errors, and does it showcase your professionalism? No matter what you do, don't always rely on spell checker on your computer. Spell checker is wonderful, but it doesn't always help. For example, here are some examples. To, or two. Manger or manager. Your, such as you are or your. They are, their or their. Customer or costumer. Use of personal pronouns. I, me, and my. Forget the texting language. We don't need that. So make sure, if spelling is not your forte, have an extra set of eyes. And many times, I remember once when I was in college, when it came to reading a paper, one time I had a professor say to me, make sure you read your paper 9 different times. I go, 9 different times for what? For example, one time, looking over your resume, make sure you're checking it for all spellings. The second time you look through it, make sure that it's relevant. So each time you look at it, have one kind of focus that you're using it for. Professionalism. A resume is a statement of facts. Don't lie, because if you lie on your resume, or especially an application, it could be grounds for dismissal. So be aware of that. Do not misrepresent dates of employment, job titles, certifications, education. Employers utilize background checks and credit checks to validate information you provide. So be honest. Let's say you had a 2.0 in college, but you have a college degree. Put your college degree on there. You don't have to put the GPA. Do you have both print and electronic versions of your resume? Print version can be more detailed than version submitted. For example, if you go in person, I would encourage you to have more than one copy with you. Have an extra printed copy out. There's an electronic version called Microsoft Office Word. DOC means document, or DOCX. That is the more current version, versus portable document format, PDF. What's the difference? For example, think of the PDF form. Some employers may wish to have you do the PDF. One of the reasons is, for example, if you send it in Word and your version might be different than theirs, it may not come across clear. For example, if you're sending a picture of yourself, let's say, and if it doesn't come through, many times the PDF form will be a little more user-friendly. And also too, with the PDF form, many times that information is cannot be changed or altered, where with Word, it could be altered. So make sure that you follow the instructions of the employer. And if you can, have both versions available. This can conclude today's workshop of resume critique. Here are our sources: Quint Careers, Career Advise Monster, allenglishpurdue.edu. We also have other workshops that we enjoy you to come and visit, such as interviewing, cover letters, managing your money, and Microsoft Word.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for presenting this really great information. And thanks also to all of our attendees. If anybody has any questions, this is still a great time to ask them in the chat. Otherwise, I think we'll be ready to wrap it up here.